Welcome to Mind Shield. We protect the mind and pursue the truth. Let's get started.
When something just feels wrong in your own environment, it's so easy to feel confused or even scared. Today, we're going to dive into how structured data collection can cut right through that noise. And this isn't about chasing conspiracies, it's about methodically finding patterns to build a clear, actionable case file. Let's start with a foundational principle of, well, any investigation really. Think about it. If you frantically start rearranging your entire life, buying a dozen new gadgets, lining your walls with foil all in 1 week, you haven't created a controlled experiment. You've just created chaos. To actually learn anything, you have to isolate the variables, one change at a time.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with the science behind all this, then we'll get into the investigator's mindset. We're going to cover a simple 3-step method, show you exactly how to build an evidence ledger, talk about your lawful next steps, and we'll wrap it all up by explaining why order is your single greatest asset.
Okay, first things first, let's be crystal clear about something. The idea that invisible energy can affect the human body is not science fiction. Your concerns have a real basis in established physics and documented research. You're not imagining the possibility, you're just trying to understand it. A perfect example is something called the microwave auditory effect, or MAE. Some people call it the Frey effect. This is a scientifically verified phenomenon where pulsed microwave energy causes a tiny, super rapid heating of tissue inside your head. Now, that heating creates a little pressure wave that travels to the cochlea, which your brain then interprets as sound. And what's really crucial here is that this can be perceived even by people with certain kinds of hearing loss. It's real. And this is not new, not by a long shot. It all started with reports from radar operators way back in the 40s. By 1961, it was confirmed in a lab. But check out that 1974 entry on the timeline. Researchers transmitted recognizable words directly into a person's head. And then, just a few decades later, this scientific curiosity becomes the basis for a weapon prototype called Medusa. And it's not just auditory effects. There's historical precedent for governments covertly beaming energy at people. For over 20 years, the Soviet Union irradiated the U.S. Embassy in Moscow with microwaves. The exact purpose is still debated, but the event, known as the Moscow Signal, kicked off years of U.S. government research into the biological effects of this kind of long-term exposure. Okay, so we've established a scientific and historical context. The potential is there. So how do we move from that unsettling knowledge to a productive, evidence-based approach? Well, we adopt the mindset of an investigator. This brings us to an absolutely crucial point. Your goal is not to find a smoking gun with some magic device. Honestly, that path usually just leads to frustration and wasted money. Instead, the real power is in capturing the context around each incident. That's what allows you or an expert you bring in to find testable patterns. This slide just illustrates the two paths perfectly. On one side, you have the gadget wizard, who's chasing a theory with gear they probably don't fully understand, and they end up with a bunch of confusing numbers. But on the other side, you have the investigator. They focus on context, using a structured log to hunt for patterns. That's the path that leads to credible data and clear next steps. So how does an investigator actually build that credible data? Well, any professional investigation, whether you're trying to find a leaky pipe or solve a criminal case, rests on 3 core principles, and we're going to apply that same exact rigor here. These are the big 3. First, you need a baseline. What does your environment feel like, look like, sound like on a totally normal day? Second, and this is absolutely critical, you need a control. A log entry of an incident is only half the story. You have to also log what it's like when the incident isn't happening. This comparison is where real evidence is born. And third, repeatability. Does the event happen again under similar circumstances? That's how you spot a pattern instead of just a fluke. So that's the theory. How do we put the big 3 into practice? We start a dedicated evidence ledger. And this isn't just a diary of feelings, it's a structured data collection tool. And the best part is, you can start today. Here's your task. Get a notebook or open up a spreadsheet. For every single incident, log the date, time, location, and other key contextual details. Rate the intensity on a simple 0 to 10 scale. And now, here's the most important step of all. Within 24 hours of an incident, go back to the same place at around the same time and make a control entry, noting what you feel when the incident is not occurring. This sample ledger shows you the power of this method. I mean, look at the first entry, an intensity of 7.
On its own, that's just a subjective claim, right? But the second entry, the control with an intensity of 0, that transforms everything. You now have a documented comparison that shows a dramatic change under identical conditions. That's no longer just a feeling, that is a data point.
And this is the question your ledger is designed to help you answer. If the cause of your issue is some external force, you would logically expect to find correlations. Maybe it only happens near a certain window, or when a neighbor's car is parked outside, or only when your laptop is on. Your log allows you to systematically test these hypotheses. And if there are never any correlations, well, then the model needs to be revised. So let's say you've collected weeks or months of data. You have a detailed ledger with your baselines, your incidents, and those all-important control entries. Now what? Well, your structured data log is the key that unlocks official channels. It transforms you from someone with a strange story into someone with a documented case file. So the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, they're the ones responsible for managing the radio spectrum. If your electronic devices are consistently going haywire, or if your log, maybe supplemented with some basic monitoring, suggests an illegal or unauthorized transmission, the FCC is the correct regulatory body to call. They investigate harmful interference. Now, for any immediate threats, or if you have evidence of actual crimes like stalking, harassment, or hacking, your local police or the FBI are the right people to contact. But don't just show up with a feeling. Provide them with your meticulous incident log. It acts as powerful supporting documentation and shows the pattern of activity that you're reporting. And sometimes you just need specialized private help. A lawyer can advise you on civil options. A TSCM expert, that stands for Technical Surveillance Countermeasures, can perform a professional sweep for hidden listening devices or cameras. And a digital forensics expert can analyze your computers for signs of hacking. In every single one of these cases, your log provides the crucial context they need to even begin. And this brings us right to the central theme of our entire explainer. When you are facing something that feels chaotic and frightening, the most powerful response is not more chaos. It's order. This isn't a new idea. This is wisdom that's been understood for millennia. In the face of confusion, decency and order are the path forward. They bring clarity, they bring strength, and they bring credibility. And this really is the ultimate takeaway. Without the Big Three method, you're just collecting anecdotes. You can find a correlation for anything if you look hard enough. But by using baselines, controls, and focusing on repeatability, you build a case that is logical, credible, and very, very difficult for anyone to just dismiss. Please remember this. Order is the native language of evidence. By adopting a structured, methodical approach, you are translating your experiences from the language of confusion and fear into the language of evidence. This empowers you, it gives you agency, and it allows you to engage with official channels in the most effective way possible. So, we've covered what to collect and who to contact. Join us next time as we explain how to report your findings, the language to use, the pitfalls to avoid, so you can present your case without risking your own credibility. We'll see you then.